stripes and he took the nails and he bore all those things for us. 3 days later, up from the grave, he arose. 3 days later, he rose as King of Kings and as Lord of Lords.
Welcome to season 5.5, episode 33 of Crosschoke. I am Zach Anderson. I'm joined by my son, Dakota Raitan.
Your son has a question. Season 5.5, does that mean 5.5?
Well, okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. So, Dakota, I haven't seen you for like a year and a half.
This is correct. We only see each other when we record the podcast.
So, our last episode was episode 32, season 5 opener.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, do you know what day that was?
It was a Monday.
Maybe.
Okay.
But it was May of 2022.
Oh my goodness.
It doesn't seem like that long. Now, that wasn't our last piece of content because we had, we welcomed a couple people on the team. We were feeding our Patreon quite a bit. And then life just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
My computer decided to die, which was really, really devastating. So I've been able to since get a new computer. I got engaged and married. 7 kids. Okay, just kidding. 0
4
kids.
dogs.
4 dogs. A parrot. And, you know, the Jiu-Jitsu Academy. We have been busy doing ministry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to a lot of fights. And I don't know. I think I did the math. I didn't do it before this, so I'm not exactly sure. But like since like, say, May of 2022, I think we've been to easily over 20 fights around the state, ministering to fighters, doing our thing. And so all that to say, the last episode was kind of the last episode.
It's a great song. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg.
No, I don't know that one. Okay. I'm sure it's cool. Walkout song worthy?
It's more like chill.
Okay.
Maybe. You know, it has that piano. Brum, 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 brum.
Oh, like Snoop Dogg?
Yeah.
Oh, that one?
Yeah, and Dr. Dre.
Oh, I thought you said Drake.
No.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. So anyway, so we're here.
Yeah.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. What have you been up to?
How's your wife?
She's good. She's real, you know. Yeah, dude, she's good. It's been exciting. Yeah. So getting married, we got married February 10th, 2023. Before that, we had a kind of a short engagement. We got engaged September 17th, just the year before. So we had a pretty quick engagement, got married. Right now, you and I are in our apartment. So that's really cool. But dude, yeah, marriage, as one of my good friends always says, marriage is the best.
Marriage is the best.
That's
a great quote. I wonder who says that.
But I also will say that marriage is so humbling because it just shows how selfish I am.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yep. It exposes the worst parts of you.
And I don't like it.
And just you specifically.
Yeah, just me. Everybody sees it. It's so bad. But dude, like it's and then, you know, there's good moments. We've only been married, I don't know, 7 months or whatever it is now. So very short time. But like I'm trying to navigate it really well and really intentionally. And we have people involved in our marriage, and we did premarital counseling, and you know, just we want to do it right and do it well. And so I try to always keep in mind, like it's the picture of how often Jesus calls himself, you know, the bride of Christ, and we are the bride of Christ.
Right.
And, just this relationship, and it always kind of is described as marriage in a lot of ways between Jesus and the church. And you know, it's when you're not married or you're young, you're like, that's just weird. You know, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But it's such I'm getting it a little bit, you know, because it's so selfless, and he gave himself up for the church. And so like the little things of like unset expectations or like passive aggressive things, or I'm going to do this so she does this.
Yeah.
I just see it all the time, and I'm like, God, I'm breaking here, like, because it's less of me all the time.
Yep.
But it's also so rewarding and so beautiful, and to be joined together, and it's been a really, really good journey. So that's been a fun thing.
It's funny because even if you have been engaged for 10 years, that first year of marriage is still so much different. That exposure of the selfishness and all the crud really comes out defining in that first year of marriage.
Yeah.
So I always say the first year is the hardest, and it gets better and better and better every year.
Dude, and I've heard that
Yeah.
from a few people that
Yeah.
I really trust with their opinion and insight. But yeah, dude, it's crazy. Moved out of my house, so I was living with my parents till I was like 28 or 29 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Which was great. I recommend
Honestly,
that.
yeah.
There's some downsides to that as well, but
Sure.
but it's been a lot of new things, a new season, and
Yeah.
and then with ministry wise, being joined together with my wife in regards to support raising, because we're technically missionaries, so we've been trying to, book churches and get individuals to support us monthly to reach a budget so we could do TFL, full time. And that's been really humbling as well. So there's all kinds of, jujitsu and support raising and marriage. It's like everything, it's been a season of just being humbled and relying on God. And so it's probably where we should be all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think God brings those specific things to our lives at really important moments to prepare us for the
absolutely.
next thing and just to show us, who he is all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You have a dog now.
I do. So, oh man, in our Patreon days, I had a different dog. Her name was Winnie, and ended up not working out at all. She was a farm dog that we got, and we don't own a farm. We own a very small plot of land, and this dog was just miserable. It wouldn't eat. It was like nipping at our kids and like. Yeah, so we ended up giving Winnie back, but my wife really wanted another dog. So we have some friends in the ministry that actually raise dogs out of Cascade, Montana. And we got Rory. He's a golden doodle, and he's a little punk, but he's a great fit for our family. And yeah, so I'm a dog owner now.
Dude, and I also heard that you've been on the search for mythological.
Yes. Yep.
You've had some life changes, pretty big adjustments over the last year or two.
In the past, the past year. So, last time we were recording podcast episodes, I was in full-time ministry. I'm still in ministry, just part-time now, as a worship pastor for our church. And really felt God call me to go bivocational. And so I'm just trying to...
And bivocational, what does that mean?
Yeah, bivocational meaning working in the marketplace and also working in a ministry type context. So doing both and not neither. And so I just felt God really call me into bivocational ministry, bivocational lifestyle. And I'm just trying to follow his call the best I can. So started a home inspection company that my wife and I run called Sasquatch Home Inspection.
Which is such a good name.
Yeah. Yeah. We had about 50 names and narrowed it down to that one. So it wasn't my first pick, but I did a poll on Instagram, and it was overwhelming the amount of people that preferred that to my preference.
There was this one time, if you remember, we were trying to pick our friend's Jake out there.
Yeah.
His new gamer tag.
Yeah, Jacob, as some call him.
Jacob, yes, Jacob. But it was kind of the same idea. And I didn't know if I should throw some of his old ones out there.
As a business name.
Sausage Fingers Home Inspection.
Oh, my.
Oh, dude, but right on. And so you just really got that kind of off the ground in the last month or so, really.
Yeah. Yep. It was a long process. If you are thinking about starting a business, I highly recommend it, but expect it to take a long time because there's just so many hoops you have to jump through that I wasn't prepared for. But yeah, things are launched. Things are going great. I've had multiple inspections under my belt now. Have a huge social media presence that's been really healthy, and yeah, it's been a huge part of my life this past season.
We talk a lot about building momentum,
Yeah.
and I've oftentimes heard it. The first time I heard it was like talking about CrossFit and
Okay.
CrossFit as BAM, business as missions, and they a lot of times would use CrossFit to get things going in other countries and doing their thing like that, but using CrossFit as a way to reach people with the gospel. And the idea of CrossFit, because I don't think CrossFit is as cool as it was maybe 5 to 10 years ago.
Sure.
But you look at anything, a business, and with say even like your own personal development, that beginning stages of building momentum is so difficult.
Right.
And it's a grind, and it takes sacrifice and frustration and things like that. So dude, great job on
Thanks.
keeping the momentum going, because eventually it ends up kind of running itself.
Right.
Because there's good word of mouth, and you have a flow, and the it factor.
Yeah.
You can't really always describe what it is, but it's like, dude, it takes a lot of unseen sacrifice and determination. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, actually.
Yeah.
But dude, great job on killing it, man.
Thanks. I was just going to say it reminds me of a train gaining momentum. It's really slow at first, but then you get to a point where it's hard to stop that train.
Yeah. That's where you run over people and stuff. It's good.
Yeah. Super healthy.
Well, guys, so we're excited to be here. Thank you to our listeners out there. We're also recording this episode, which is kind of a first for us. I mean, like physically, like a video.
Yeah.
So that'll be on our YouTube page. We're we threw some stuff together today. We don't exactly have all our equipment
Right.
in place. I'm kind of hooked to a cutting board on the table, but it's worked. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
You gotta start.
We're making it
We're
work.
building momentum.
That's exactly right. The train is chugging along.
So, but we're excited to be back in the saddle, as they say. I don't say that, but
Some people do.
as far as what listeners can expect, we don't want to overextend ourselves and overpromise and cut ourselves too thin. But what we're looking to do is do this podcast once a month. And we'll just kind of continue to be listener focused, and whatever kind of subjects that people want us to talk about, and share our insight. We don't know everything, but we'll share what we know and do our thing. So that's what we can expect right now. Is this will be on YouTube and then all your podcast services. But we've tightened up our vision, our purpose as a ministry, and overall our heart, and what we have in our t-shirts and a lot of our branding, but especially what we try to live out is we're in your corner.
Yep.
So if you're a fighter out there, a competitor, even just I don't want to call it a hobbyist, but somebody that just trains, that loves the fight game, loves jujitsu, loves boxing, loves kickboxing, we're in that world, and we want to help equip you to be a better competitor, to be a better husband if you're a husband, every facet of life, a better student, whatever fight you're facing we're in your corner.
Yeah.
We've talked to a lot of people over the last couple of years I've seen things in Dakota, you've had some time with fighters too, but I've seen like custody battles, fighters that are facing things like that, addiction, just a lot of shame that can carry on a fighter's shoulders, just with mistakes they've made. And, I think sometimes combat sports, especially on the local level, is you get to see a lot more of a guy who just loves the fight, that you get to see into his life a little bit. And maybe he got into fighting because it was, hey, I don't get in trouble for punching this person in the face.
Sure.
And then there's the other side of it where, maybe you came from a little bit safer background and you just got into, karate when you were little or whatever that kind of looks like, and you built up through it that way. So whatever it is that that brought you into the fight game is, sometimes it could be a lonely place, and it could feel like it's just you in there and, doing your thing. And so, we're here to provide support just like a corner man would, in and out of the cage.
I think the beautiful thing about this mantra of "we're in your corner" is that it applies to so much more than just the cage as well.
Yeah.
People recognize that sentiment, whether they're a fighter or not. They understand, oh, you're in my corner. And maybe for some people it clicks in a way where they don't even resonate it with fighting. You know, they just
Right.
understand immediately, you've got my back.
Yep. That's right. Yeah. We've got your back. We're here for you. We see you. And the podcast is part of us really taking a step forward to show that.
Exactly.
We have a great time, and part of the culture that we just try to build as a ministry is lighthearted, non cringy. We're not, gonna throw a Bible at you and say
Right.
you're not good enough, but it's like, man, Jesus loves you. We love you, and you are worth investing into.
Yeah, and one thing we say a lot, that is a rooted identity in TFL is a non-anxious spirit. And so through the podcast, through everything we do, that's one core value that we want to emulate.
Yeah. It's so good. And it's so welcoming and just presence. And yeah. So we just want to be safe, a safe place for people. So yeah, that's, when we laugh a lot.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
but yeah, man, we just enjoy life. And we have our struggles as well. And so we're on the same page. And we want to just continue to build that momentum of a community. And so we're working on, not our podcast, but we're also working on our website.
Yeah.
Our website, and we were looking at things, and again, not to overpromise, overextend, but things kind of take time, but life coaching.
Yeah.
And, being able to have our online presence and our chaplaincy ministry, and, but everything has vision and comes back to this idea of we're in your corner.
Yep.
And, some things fail, some things do succeed, yet we're determined to keep in your corner all the way through.
Keep the grind.
So I'm excited. That brings us to kind of what we're going to talk a little bit about today, Dakota.
Yeah.
And what that is as a competitor, as a boxer, as someone who's in MMA, is what we want to talk about today is you are not defined by your record.
Yeah.
So some competitors out there have outstanding records.
Sure.
Some
You should name one.
So the only person that just came to mind is Connell Powers.
Okay.
He just made his pro debut, but he had great record. He's out of Missoula, Dog Pound. I think they just changed their name. He has a great record. You go all the way to the top end. What's really funny, so not a lot of people know this about me, but I rarely watch a real UFC fight.
Really?
I can't even tell
I
you.
probably watch more UFC than you do.
Dude, really? Like, I don't know what it is right now, and I just don't care.
Sure.
So like, I know Israel Adesanya just lost to the guy from Australia.
Oh, yep.
But dude, the last real UFC that we rented and I watched and I cared about was like Anthony Rumble Johnson fighting Daniel Cormier.
Oh my.
And Rumble since died. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was cool. But anyways, like after that, I don't know if it's just because UFC has gotten so monopolized, ever since Reebok came in, and then like UFC sold, and all these different owners now, like I think Ben Affleck to Matt Damon to The Rock, everybody kind of is owner of it. And I don't know, I just don't really, I was like, well, I'll catch some highlights on Instagram and go on with my life. I just don't have the brain space for that right now.
Well, that's cool for you to shout out a local guy, though.
Oh yeah, dude, the local guys are out there, and there's some guys that have had a couple losses. We have a really good friend, Seth, down in Las Vegas. Some of the guys, Extreme Couture guys. Jordan Christensen's got some great fights, all the way through. Our boy Latimer, Gary Latimer, he's got some fights. He's lost some fights recently, but it's just life. Guys win, guys lose. And, and we're not throwing dirt on anybody.
No.
But we're there, and we get to see these guys compete. Like, we were just in Missoula. You were in Missoula catching some fights. We were in Billings a couple weeks before that. One of the main event guys, I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Dunkel. But dude, he had a great fight. And so, you know, performances are performances. You do your thing, you fight, you put in the time, or you don't.
Sure.
And your record goes up or down. You win, you lose. And what we want to talk about today is that idea of like, okay, as a competitor, you are not defined by the win or the loss. And I was kind of faced with this early in my fight career when I just was in high school doing our thing. And I've told this story a couple times, but I was, 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, and they were all like within 2 minute.
Sure.
Like I think my first 2 fights combined were like a total of 50 seconds. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like it was a great start, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I remember at the time I was serving the Lord and really starting to like toss this idea around of what ministry and fighting could look like.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the Lord really putting before me. Now he didn't say, Zach, here is your paths of life.
It shall be called TFL.
Yeah. And you will make this logo yellow. No, but I remember just, God speaks to us not like we always want him to.
Sure.
But if we're listening, we hear him because he speaks to us through a book, through a friend, through a song, through, a kind of a stirring in your spirit where you're kind of uncomfortable and you're like, God, what are you saying to me?
Yeah.
Through journaling. And then you can kind of begin to piece together things. And it's like, okay, this is pretty clear now at this point. But I remember a check in my spirit. I don't really remember how, but it was like, okay, am I going to use this platform that I'm growing in for myself, or am I going to use it for God?
Yeah.
Am I going to be identified by my record, how fast my fights were, how good my fights were? Is that going to be who I am? Or am I going to let that be its thing and be my own person beyond the fight game?
Yeah.
So that's really what we're going to look at today. And so Dakota, you and I have both come up with kind of 3 things each to kind of consider if your record is good, not so good. It's not what defines you.
Right.
And so if it doesn't define you as a competitor, then what does? So Dakota, you got 3 things here. And why don't you kick us off with your first one?
Sure. So the first idea is that you're not defined by your record, as we stated, as we're trying to prove, but you're also not defined by what others think. And so to wrap this all into one word, I would like to summarize it by saying identity. What is your identity? So for some, their identity may be rooted in the fact that they're 3-0. For others, their identity might be wrapped in the fact that they're 1-4. And you could unhealthily both ways base your identity around that record. You could be really prideful in the fact that you hold this high esteem of being undefeated, or you could be really full of shame about a reverse record.
Right.
But I want to bring it back to this point of identity in saying, even if your identity is I'm a fighter, what happens when you get injured in a way where you can't fight anymore? All of a sudden, the platform that you've based your whole identity on is removed, and now you are identityless. You have a loss of identity and you don't know who you are anymore. So there has to be a rooted base in your identity that doesn't have a factor that can be removed. So even being a parent, there might be a time where you don't have kids, or your kids age out of your house and you're no longer a parent. And that's where we see a lot of families experience divorce when their kids move out, because their identity was in being a parent instead of something that's more stable. So even things that we think are so rooted in truth cannot be the basis of our identity. And I feel like it would be sacrilegious of me not to, just off the bat, mention that I think the only thing our identity can be truly rooted in is in Christ, because it's unwavering.
It's good.
It doesn't fail. And so if your identity is in your record, I'm sorry, but it's wrong. Whether it's a positive record or a negative one, it's wrong.
Because it can always change.
Absolutely.
And I think you hit something really well, because say a fighter gets injured,
Yeah.
and maybe you had to pull out of a fight or can't train, because even training can become your identity, how good you are on the mats.
Right.
And I've been there, and I've seen fighters be there, or people who I coach, say they hurt their wrist, they punched weird, they hit a bag weird, and they need 6 weeks because they fractured it.
Right.
But they're back on the mats in 3 because they're starting to kind of freak out inside.
Yeah.
Because man, the mat is everything.
Yeah.
And I totally get that. There's this obsessive part of us, and also
Right.
dedication. You don't want to fall behind. There's positive things there.
Sure.
But it's like, okay, I have to be okay with stepping away and still be unwavered.
Right.
And my identity's in Christ, and I'm rooted well, you
Yeah,
know,
and
and
who-
so it's tricky.
Who are you outside of the fight game? Who are you outside of whatever you place your identity in, whether it's your work, your family, your background? There's so many things that we can place our identity in, but who are you besides all of those things?
Yeah. The second thing that we have that I was just kind of thinking about is you're not defined by your record, but by your character, which really feeds off of what you said. There's the sacrifices, what do I mean by that? So like there's the sacrifices that we make meal wise. You have a family, you have to leave them to go to training. You have to wake up early. You're not getting, the normal life because you're dedicated to training. You have your determination, the endurance it takes, just the mental fortitude to just train. And, we talked about a little about the loneliness. This is the fight life. That's why we named the ministry, what we did is the fight life entails all of these things, man. It's the fight life, all the sacrifices, the dedication. And so it's the depth behind the competition that makes the fighter who he is. It's not just the performance that everybody sees when the lights are on you.
Yeah.
It's who are you when no one else is watching. That's the integrity part of character. And, have you made shortcuts or not?
Yeah.
Are you cheating on your meals or not?
Yeah.
Who are you when you're not fighting?
Yeah.
And we've seen this too with we get to see a lot of things that I feel we shouldn't get to see.
Sure.
Just being in the place of influence, and not that we shouldn't see them, but we get to peer into the behind the scenes
Yeah.
of the locker room, of, the downtime before the fight,
Yeah.
the time after the fight, when they get stitched up, we're there as that non-anxious, influential spirit and presence. And it's in those moments that, and we're not saying this from a judgmental side of things, but we get to see who that person really is,
Yeah.
not just who they are when their name's announced on the way out, and when they, and you get to see a lot about a person when they win and when they lose,
Yeah.
but how they handle things in the back. Who are you on social media?
Right.
All these things, that is what is who you are.
Yeah.
That is the defining characteristics of behavior and, your belief system. And if your belief system is identified as, man, I'm doing really good, I'm 6-0, you tend to get a little cocky in those moments.
Yeah.
And you're not the easiest going person. And, and it's unhealthy,
Yeah.
and then there's the other side of it to where you're like, oh, what was me? I'm going to go kick dirt and I can't win a fight. And so it's those moments that nobody else is seeing that really, really matter. Whether you're spending your time wisely or not, it's character. You're not defined by your record, but by your character and who you are. Because maybe your record isn't that good, but man, if you are grinding,
Yeah.
you have that heart, you have that grit, that is commendable, and that's good character. But if your record is, say you're kind of the guy that just takes a fight and you're not doing too good, but then you're trying to put in the time,
Yeah.
that's the guys that are really making a difference and showing who they are.
Yeah. It reminds me of this thought. Speaking of character, uh, where does someone turn to after the fight? You know,
Mm,
um, and not to call people out or, like you said, be judgmental, but you see people after the fight immediately turn to drugs and alcohol.
mm-hmm.
Um, some other negative things, immediately start blasting their opponent on social media.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the character behind
Yeah.
off the mats
Yeah.
that matters.
Yes. Yeah. And I've told you this before. I have a theory. I don't know if it's a theory, but say the independent fighter, meaning the guy that just doesn't have a team, you know, and sometimes it's not really their fault because you're in a small town in Montana
Yeah.
or kind of rural, you know, and
Sure.
you're doing your thing, trying to watch videos. You have a bag in the gym or in the garage,
Yeah.
you know, that you're hitting. And then you have the guy that's, you know, has a team, well established, you know, out of state, you know, doing his thing. And so, you know, you take those two people, and I've often made an observation, and it's not always true, but I feel like this is true most of the time, is the independent fighter oftentimes has more passion
Yeah.
than the guy who has a team.
Yeah.
And that shows me a lot of character because those are the guys that are like, man, I'll fight anybody. I don't care. I'll fight anybody. And they're oftentimes pretty talented. You know, they're pretty sharp. You know, we've seen a lot of that, you know. And I think within that idea is talent will only take you so far, but it's the character that will take you even further.
That's good.
And I just want to, encourage people like, man, invest in who you are when nobody's watching, because then you're really doing it for you and not the crowd, not the record, not the next fight. It's like, man, I'm solid. I'm secure in who I am. I'm training hard. And man, in the fight, I'm going to do everything I can to beat who's across from me, whether I win or lose. Nobody likes to lose, of course. We're not saying that.
Sure.
Right, I'm going to do everything I can to win. But man, at the end of the day, I'm going to hit the mats and I'm going to train hard.
Yeah. And that's a great segue actually into my next point of perseverance. There's this kid that I got to corner about a month ago. And exactly the example that you're talking about. Comes from a small rural town, doesn't really have any fight experience, but took a fight because they wanted to fill a role. You know, short notice, cut a lot of weight really fast, so they're not feeling themselves. Watched a lot of YouTube videos, you know, even right before the fight, and doesn't know if they're southpaw or standard, you know. And but it's the perseverance there. You know, it's the passion too, but it's the perseverance. This kid went into the fight against someone that's a foot taller than him, 50 pounds more at least, and had to be brought out of the fight. He would have kept going unless the doc had said,
you're done.
You cannot fight anymore. And even afterwards, those were his words. Oh man, I know I could have gone more, but the doc said I can't. And
Dude,
it's like,
so good.
That's perseverance right there.
And you can't really teach that in a lot of ways.
No, not at all. But yeah, perseverance. You're not defined by your record, but this characteristic, perseverance of, I'm going to continue my diet plan no matter what. I'm going to continue my workout plan even on days where I feel like I have a cold. Like, I am going to persevere and keep going, keep that momentum again, that train pushing forward, and persevere no matter what until the doc pulls me out of the cage.
And it's not that we agree that fight should have happened anyways.
No, not at all. It's but it brings a great example that I'll never forget.
Yeah, man. We could learn a lot from again, I just really think there's something to that. That
Yeah.
independent guy that just takes the fight. I don't care. He's 50 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
The promoter's like, well, if you don't care, I don't care.
Yeah. Yep.
But see, then that's where I think another element of the fight game is those are also the guys that are most taken advantage of because they'll take a fight. They don't care. They love the fight game.
Yep.
You know, so
And they don't care what their record is.
And they don't care what their record is. So we could see a positive there, but then also you gotta have that decisive. What word am I looking for, Co?
For me, it reminds me of balance.
There you go. Discretion. That's what I'm looking for.
Great.
I don't use big words a lot. Discretion my brain almost blew up. But yeah, you got to be able to have some discretion to say no. You can't just always say yes to every fight.
Yeah.
You got to have time to heal, time to train, time to be like, okay, should I take this fight or not? You know,
I'm going to have to lose 50 pounds in 3 weeks. Sure, I'll do it.
I wonder if that goes almost back to they might not think their identity is in their record because the record's already way gone. The record's gone. But it's like, if I'm not fighting, what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
You know, and so maybe that's another kind of idol in a way.
Right.
You know, it's like, man, if I don't take a fight and somebody knew I could have, are they going to think I'm not tough or don't want to?
Sure.
I'm scared, you know.
That's true.
So it's like, you got to let those things go because most of the things that we think people think about us, nobody cares.
Right.
And also it's like, I can't let something so changing form who I am.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because who knows? COVID hits and you can't fight at all.
Don't say that.
Well, it happened.
Okay. It happened. I thought we were going to be like, it's happening again. No.
Well, you never know, man. You never know.
Yeah.
So tell me about your next point.
So yeah, it's, you know, we're saying a lot of the same things, just a little different take.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I wanted to say, and something that I always say to our students at Imperial, at our Jiu-Jitsu Academy, is always be a student. You know, you're not defined by your record, but how good of a student are you?
Yeah.
And this ties in with character, ties in with perseverance, you know, ties in with passion. It goes beyond competing to stay a student. There's always, just in regards to what a student is a student's always learning. There's always more to learn.
Yeah.
And oftentimes if we get that chip on our shoulder, we start to not let there be room for us to grow, to learn, to, you know, I've seen this before where like, mostly on the big stage where you really get to, you know, feel yourself, you know, as you be like, I don't need that coach anymore.
Yeah.
You know, you see it in football, you know, guys get too big for their britches, as they say. I don't know. I think that's the saying.
Some people will say it. Yeah.
But Antonio Brown.
Sure.
You know, that's a little different. I think he kind of went crazy. You know what I mean? You kind of start to not be a student anymore because you think you know it all. And then when you lose a fight, it's kind of the best thing that could happen to you because it knocks you off your high horse. And you're like, man, I need to learn. I need to always be a student. And that goes to say that whatever age you are, you could always be a student. Yeah. You know, especially with jiu-jitsu. We have a grandmaster that I'm really good friends with, 9th degree red belt, and he's like 84,
That's so
85. Cool. And dude, he's still going around to seminars teaching and just a cool guy. But like you could always be on the mats. Yeah. You could always keep training. And so it's always better to fall in love with the process of refinement, the process of learning, of growing yourself, of getting better. That's what should define you as a student, and not the highs, the mountain peaks of the actual competition.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it reminds me of musicians. You see these professional singers that think they know how to sing because they got a record deal the first week that their album went out.
Sure.
So they've been touring for years, but never learned how to properly sing. And so that's when injury happens. And I think the same thing can happen on the mats. Dude, you have a great record and you think you know everything, that's when injury happens.
Yeah, man, I agree. Totally. Yeah. So it takes intentionality. You have to intentionally be a student and stay a student.
Yeah. So my next point about not being defined by our record, but instead being defined by what's left in the cage or what's left in the fight. So it takes me back to the saying that we use in TFL that it's, what's the word I'm looking for?
Discernment.
It's discernment. I need discernment in saying this. We talk about this grit that we should have as a staff, as TFL volunteers, where there's a little bit of nasty.
Yeah.
You knew exactly where I was going.
Yeah, that's good.
You should not be defined by your record, but maybe you're defined by a little bit of nasty, Another common theme that people throw around in this day and age is having that dog in them.
Okay.
It's someone that goes into the fight and leaves it all in the cage no matter what. Again, we're kind of
goosebumps.
There you go.
Let's go.
We're kind of circling around the same premise of character and identity and passion and perseverance. It's kind of the same thought where you go in and the doc has to pull you out.
Yeah.
You're going in and you're leaving it all there no matter what. It's for you, it's not about a record. For you, it's not about winning or losing, but it's about leaving it all out there, whether it's on the jiu-jitsu mats, whether it's in the cage. You're going and you're leaving it all out there.
And that's what gets you invited back.
Yeah.
To guys like Fusion, to guys like BKFC especially, right. Man, if you are just throwing, you're going for it, even if you're losing, it's like, dude, I am going to, if this guy beats me, this is kind of my attitude when I fight. And as a coach, it's fun to instill these things in students.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if you get beat at a competition, it's because they had to work so hard. And by the end of it, after they beat you, if you get beat, they're like, man, you are tough.
Yeah.
I did everything. It took so much within me to beat you.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily technique or skill, but like you said, that little bit of nasty. It's like, dude, okay, if you're going to beat me, it's going to take, your hands are going to get tired by punching me in the face.
Exactly. And you know who that reminds me of? Not to just name drop this whole podcast episode, but of Marnik Mann.
Oh, yeah.
When she took that fight in UFC this last month, even the announcers were saying the whole time, man, she likes getting hit. She not only can take a hit, but she can dish it out too. And she made her opponent work for that win.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, it's right on. And my grandpa always said that, it's not the guy that could always dish it out, but the one that can take it.
Yeah.
And dude, it's so good to that's the fight life right there.
Right.
Whatever comes my way in or out of the cage is I'm going to keep moving forward and be a person of character, of integrity. And, so much of this is the Bible.
Yeah. Honestly.
Unwavered by the changing of seasons.
Yep.
Deep rooted in who Christ says I am, which leads us to our last point, is that you are not defined by your record, but by grace.
Yeah.
Everything that we're talking about here, everything from, not being defined by what others think, your own sense of identity, by being defined by character, perseverance, by being a student, by leaving it all in the cage. Everything that we're talking about is not, the key here isn't to try harder.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily makes sense right away.
Sure.
But everything we do in our walk should be defined by grace. And so this is really where the core of this conversation is. We started there. You're like, man, it's our identity should be in Christ. That's as simple as we can make it.
Yep.
But Jesus is that unchanging common denominator that says who you are.
Yeah.
That you are his child, and how we started talking about marriage.
Yeah.
He is, we are the bride of Christ. And, being like, okay, what does that mean? How Jesus looks at you.
Yeah.
He loves you. He cares about you. In him is life, and life to the fullest. There's forgiveness for when you've messed up, for when your identity was in something else. There's not necessarily more harmful things that your identity could be in, but, by your money, by your status, things that can become an idol and take the place of what Jesus wants. And that's that core of who you are. He's like, let me in, let me help define you, let me show you why you're here. Let me give you purpose. Let me give you that identity that you're seeking. And he will never fail you. And that's really what I want our listeners to hear, is that he will never let you down. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. He's always in your corner more than we are. He loves you more than you can imagine.
Yeah.
And he is trustworthy of your attention.
Yeah. No matter what your record is, too.
No matter. Yeah, even if you just lost, Jesus still loves you. Okay?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and so that is really kind of just that final point that I wanted to give. And so before we move on to the last little part of this podcast here, is if you're out there and you do not know who Jesus is, and you've never experienced the weightlessness of forgiveness, and the Dakota, you and I have talked about this a lot, but in life we carry around so much baggage.
Yeah.
Of your past, of your, the shame we could have, and the mistakes we've made, or things we even did yesterday. We're really good at carrying around things we don't need to.
Yeah.
And the biggest one of those is sin. The sin of falling short, because God has created this standard, because he's holy and he's perfect. And to be with him or welcomed with him and have a relationship with him is, we can't have all that baggage. We can't have all that sin. And that's the whole reason why Jesus came, is God loves us and paid the price for that sin, because the penalty for sin is death, is blood. And it's the ultimate price. There's no greater price. And that's why it was so such a heavy sacrifice. And so with that, Jesus took the sin that we deserve to pay for.
Yeah.
And he paid for it. And so with that comes this invitation to life, and life is like it was meant to be. And so if you've never experienced that relationship with Jesus, even just right this moment, close your eyes, take a moment and say, all right, God, I hear what they're saying, these two hooligans behind the microphone. My identity is not in my record. My identity has been in my record. God, forgive me.
Yeah.
Forgive me for placing my identity in anything else other than you, because you are unwavering and you will never change. And if you ask him into your heart, ask him to forgive you of your sins, the Bible says you're born again.
That's right.
But truly, it's a new beginning.
Yeah.
And that is the message of hope that we share right now. And so if that's you, I just encourage you to take a moment, ask God to forgive you of your sins, and begin this new journey. And we're here for you wherever you are in that journey. Yeah. Maybe you've been hurt by the church. Maybe this doesn't quite resonate with you. That's okay. But this is the truth. This is what you need to hear. This is the whole point. Is Jesus gives life. And so if you're there and you're like, yes, I say yes to Jesus today, is we want to come alongside you. We want to give you a Bible. We want to help you learn and start this new journey of being identified by Jesus, and not something like maybe your record.
Yeah, absolutely.
So reach out to us. We have, this will be on all our social feeds, all those things. We try to make it as easy as possible to be like, hey, man, I gave my life to the Lord today. What do I do? And so we're here for you. There's no shame in not knowing what to do, or if you've never done that, let's do it.
It's the cross.
Our walkout song of the week
Dude, it's back. I'm so excited.
Yeah. We've had some amazing songs in the past. We saw that playlist on Spotify.
Oh yeah.
Full of all of our past either songs from us or songs from our guests. Shout out to Pastor Randy with the Space Space Cowboy.
Space Cowboys. How could I forget that song?
Yeah, we've got some really humorous walkout songs, which really get the crowd pumped up. You do the YMCA or something like that. Recently, we've seen some really good walkout songs and some really bad ones.
That's true. That's true.
I'm reminded of, I don't know the name of the song, but the guy walked out to the song that goes, "I can be your hero, baby."
Oh my goodness.
The crowd was just dead. And it's this emotional song and he's just walking out. No hype. You gotta have hype.
You gotta have some hype.
So this song comes to you with some hype. It is by Alistair and Spencer Kane, and it is called Vertebrae.
The sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, Jesus Christ.
For our verse of the week, I wanted to find something that tied into our discussion today. And so it comes to you from Romans chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. And it says this: "We can rejoice too when we run into problems and trials, for we know that they help us develop endurance. And endurance develops strength of character, and character strengthens our confident hope of salvation."
Yeah, let's go. How does that kind of apply to our lives?
Yeah, it applies in a way where, just like we've been saying this whole podcast, we're not defined by anything other than what Christ says about us. So that includes our character. Our identity is not rooted in a record, but in that character, and then that character solidifies that hope in Jesus Christ.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, guys, thank you for joining us on this we're back episode.
Yeah.
I think we'll probably actually not be season 5.5. But just go but just get rid of seasons altogether. That's our commitment, is we're just gonna keep cruising.
Yeah.
No seasons. And I think that gave us an excuse to stop sometimes.
Sure.
It's like, oh man, I don't know. Let's just we'll just start a new season.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, thank you for joining us on this episode. That's all we got. Be sure to share this with your friends, and and be interactive with us. Let us know what you want us to talk about in any of the upcoming episodes next month. We'll probably have these out within the first week of every month. So between now and then, if you know kind of some suggestions that you'd want us to talk about, we're here. Hope everyone has a great day, Dakota.
A great day.
And we'll catch you
next time.
Thank you so much for listening to Crosschoke. It was a blast creating this episode, and we hope you enjoyed listening. Submit any fun questions, inquisitive comments, serious requests, or hilarious stories to tflministries.com/podcast. Feel free to follow Zach at Andobutte and myself at South for a Day. Have an amazing day and join us next time on Crosschoke.
So the next part of this episode is a little undefined because we didn't really decide on what we're doing next.